The Formula 1 grid for 2025 was completed on December 20, when Minardi announced that the final grid spot alongside Yuki Tsunoda would be filled by Red Bull Junior Isack Hadjar, the 20-year-old French-Algerian that just completed an impressive season of Formula 2 that saw him win 4 feature races, score 8 podiums, and finish runner-up in the championship to Brazil's Gabriel Bortoleto. It was a signing to be expected. He was easily the best performing Red Bull Junior that year, and a free seat was open at their junior team, so the basic math was to put him in the seat. Now, many already knew about Hadjar over the past 3 seasons through his participation in Formula 3 and Formula 2, but when he was confirmed for the F1 seat, a certain community took that signing as a very prideful moment. That community was the league racing community. You see, many people don't know this, but as he rose to prominence on F1's junior ladder, Isack Hadjar was known to many not by his real name, but by his gamer tag IGKZack06 to league racers all over the world. Intern, why IGK? What does that stand for? Well, that's the esports team he was a part of, IGK Esports. Isack Hadjar was a competitive gamer, and he was no slouch either, as he qualified for and raced in the F1 Sim Racing Challenger Series in 2021 on the F1 2020 game for PS4. It was obvious he was talented, and so was his team, as other drivers in that same championship also sported the IGK tag. But anyways, how did he do in the series? Well, let's find out. Round 1 saw the drivers go to the unraced street circuit of Vietnam, where our good pal Isack put his Renault P7 on the grid. He was among the first group of people to pit in the 14-lapper, giving him great track position but having the burden of his tires going off quicker. Despite losing a few spots, Zach, as the commentators called him, crossed the line P6 with post-race penalties promoting him to P5. Round 2 saw the use of one-shot quali at a wet Shanghai, and Zach set a time good enough for P8 of the 16 drivers. He got a great start off the line, but it ended up not mattering, as the Ferrari of CRG Matthijs misjudged a corner and plowed not only into Zach, but another driver as well. Safe to say, in a race only 14 laps long, Hadjar was cooked and finished outside the points in P14. Zach struggled again in qualifying for round 3 at Zandvoort, putting up a lap only good enough for P12. And just like China, a lap 1 incident would again derail his hopes of scoring points, and a P15 finish, last on track, was all he could salvage. Round 4 in Austria saw Zach again struggle in qualifying, only putting up a lap good enough for P14. Unfortunately, he remained around that region for the majority of the race and failed to score for the 3rd round in a row. Hadjar had to start cooking as he was losing massive ground in the championship. He needed a top 6 finish in the standings to advance further in the esports series, and he only had 10 points, all of which were scored in the 1st round. This put him 12th in the standings of the 16 drivers. He qualified P9 for round 5 at a wet Silverstone track, but a dry track for the race saw Hadjar make up a few places and finished lap 1 in P6. He would be one of the last to make his mandatory stop, hoping his fresh tires would help him in the end, and though he only crossed the line in P8, penalties promoted him back to P5, his 2nd points finish of the championship. Paying homage to his finish at Silverstone, Zach would step up in one-shot quali at Spa and put himself P5 for the race. Despite challenging for 3rd all race in P4, P5 is where he would again finish after being passed on the final lap. Only 4 rounds remained, and Zach was now P10 in the standings, 12 points off of the P6 he needed to transfer to the next league. The grid pulled up to Monza for round 7, and 15 cars left the pits to go for pole. But intern, I thought you said there were 16 drivers in the championship. Yeah, there were, but only one was absent, and that one was IGK Zach. Much to my shock as I did research for this video, Hadjar was nowhere to be seen not only for this race, but for the rest of the championship. And not only that, but his name isn't even in the final standings of the championship at the end of the season for reasons I still don't know as of recording. So yeah, that's randomly where all of that came to an end, but fret not. To end today's video on a high, we're gonna continue by going to another one of the biggest leagues in F1 esports, the Premier Sim Gaming League, PSGL. Names like Jarno Opmeer, Lucas Blakely, and Jake Benham have all competed at the highest level of PSGL, and as you're about to see, Zach was also one of those people. Though not running full-time, Hadjar would have his chance to race in PSGL in F1 2020, specifically at round 13 of season 26 at Circuit of the Americas for the PS4. Finally getting a chance to race in the league after being a reserve that season, Zach and his trusted Renault came out the blocks gunning by going provisional pole in the dying minutes of qualifying. Only one driver would best him that session, and he would start outside pole for the race. He didn't have the best start and dropped to P4 by the end of the first sector of lap 1, and he'd remain in P4 until a driver in front of him disconnected, promoting him back into the podium spots. He would remain there and opted to pit for harder tires early to attempt to stretch them to the end. Another group of drivers stretched their hard compounds long and switched to softs for their last stint. So while Zach filtered back into P3, he was a sitting duck as the drivers on fresh softs made their way to the rear of his car. Soon, Zach had a train of cars behind him, one of which was a driver fighting for the championship, CRG Matthijs. Remember him? Yes, you do. Cast your mind back to China in the F1 Challenger Series, where a misjudgment by Matthijs ruined Zach's race on lap 1. Anyways, Zach had more motivation to keep him behind outside of this, as his teammate BDG Gill was in a title duel with Matthijs for the championship that year, and it was up to Zach as a reserve to help him out. This round was the penultimate one of the season, with a Brazil finale scheduled for the next round. What ensued was a battle that saw moments of great racecraft and also contact.
He's not really got it. He's sure he can have the exit speed, but at this point the tires are starting to get a bit older, and there's contact. Onyx has hit 0 ERS, he's got to go for the move, and he's going late onto the inside line. Zach, merely reactionary, moves on the braking on the track as well. That, he didn't mean to do that. Look at Juice trying to get in there as well. Was it actually Zach that instigated that in the first place? Look at that, moving on the braking as well. He's not doing the best defense of himself. The gap would be, what, 14 points at the top of the championship. It would almost certainly be 1. It's a bit late now. Zach, doing an aggressive anything, he's wanting this podium. But luckily for his sake, Zach hasn't went for it this time.
Alas, with the older tires, Zach couldn't hold on, eventually fading to P8. But his defense was not in vain, as Matthijs failed to get the win and finished less than 1.5 seconds behind BDG Gill at the flag. Zach's defense ended up mattering more than he could have expected, as CRG Matthijs would end up losing the championship by the slimmest possible margin. Count back. BDG Gill and CRG Matthijs finished that season level on points, with race victories on countback awarding the championship to Gill. Anyways, that's about as much as I could source about Hadjar and his league racing efforts, because league racing is what Hadjar did when he wasn't racing in French Formula 4 that year. And from there, he went to Formula Regional, became a Red Bull Junior driver, graduated to F3, then graduated to F2, and now races on the Formula 1 grid for Minardi as a league racing alumni. That, my friends, is the story of IGK Zach 06. My name is Intern, I talk wheel, and thanks for watching.